Welcome back to AgriTalk as we wrap up today's broadcast here at the Ag Retailers Convention going on in Boca Raton, Florida. Joining me now is Adam Putnam. He is Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture. He's welcoming us here to his state and also telling me there's some great deals to be had on condos, right?
Well, there's some great deals to be had on the beach, and there's some pretty good deals on farmland. We always welcome our friends from the Midwest to come down here and try their hand at growing fruits and vegetables as well.
Tell us a little bit about the state as far as your agriculture and kind of give us an overview right now how things are going.
Agriculture in Florida is a $100 billion industry. It's second only to tourism in our state. We produce 300 different commodities, significant livestock presence, cow-calf operations. We're shipping our calves to our friends out west. Still have a significant presence of dairies, but we also have things that are a little unusual for Florida. We have stone crabs and oysters and clam farmers. We have tropical fruits, and of course, citrus is still king.
Very diversified agriculture indeed, and that's why the theme of this meeting, I think, really, it's important for all of agriculture, but I think of your state, one of the key states dealing with some of these issues, and that is the sustainability issue. How do you approach it in Florida?
Well, obviously, these issues are very important in a state like this. It's an urban state. We have a lot of people who aren't from here, so they probably lack a full appreciation of the role of agriculture in our state, because to them, Florida's not a place, it's an idea. It's sort of a fantasy land, and they want it to stay exactly how they found it. And so we have a little bit of a challenge. We obviously have wetlands issues, Everglades issues, a lot of environmentally sensitive areas, but just like farmers anywhere, we don't take a backseat to anybody. We have a very positive story to be told about being good stewards of the land, good stewards of the water and natural resources. We have a very strong stewardship ethic, and I view that as an important part of my job, is to get into these urban areas and really share our passion for how much good agriculture does, not only for the economy, but also the environment.
I would imagine that you are watching closely the whole issue with the Chesapeake Bay watershed and the EPA proposals for regulations there. And there are many concerns outside of that area for the rest of agriculture that what gets implemented there could eventually be implemented in other parts of the country and could really shut down or hinder agriculture in those areas. How do we find that balance, that fine line of being able to preserve the environment but produce the food that's needed?
Well, not only the issues going on in the Chesapeake, but also there's some Great Lakes issues, and then frankly there's some issues here in Florida where the EPA settled a lawsuit with Earth Justice and some of the other environmental groups. And when they do those kinds of things, when they set a higher standard for water quality and other environmental standards in one state over the other 49, it's only a matter of time. Those things are contagious. So I know that farmers and ranchers out there, they've got a lot on their plate. They don't need to be worried about what's going on in Florida. But for your associations, make sure they're paying close attention to these issues. Nutrient loading in water, environmental permitting issues, wildlife issues, the things that happen in California and Florida and the Chesapeake, they're going to end up on a farm near you very shortly. The most important thing, I think, is for us to be very loud and clear with our members of Congress. From a sustainability standpoint, allow us to sustain our businesses. It is unacceptable for us to be a nation that's dependent on other countries for our food and fiber. Farmers are good stewards of the land, and we just need to do a better job of educating our policymakers.
Yeah, I've been referring to this, and I think this is the growing challenge here, to feed this growing population, to do it in an environmentally sustainable way, but also in an economically sustainable way, a socially sustainable way. I mean, these are big challenges to try to balance all that out. Historically, we're not real good at balance in this country. The pendulum swings too far one way over the other. So that is what agriculture really faces in feeding all these people.
Well, it is, and as a planet, we're going to grow by 2 billion people. We need to increase food production by 70%. The only way that's going to happen is through technology and innovation to increase those yields on fewer acres. And that's where American agriculture, American land-grant universities come in. There's a lot of these university folks who take a hostile view towards agriculture, and they talk about farmers and ranchers not being pro-science. Well, I would argue that they're not pro-chemistry, because it's going to take a pro-science approach, a chemistry approach, a genetics approach to allow us to increase global food production by 70% by 2050. And we can't have them standing in the way. American farmers are are icons of efficiency. Name one other industry where 1.5% of the population has the types of efficiencies that American agriculture has. That's what some of these regulators at EPA and labor and other places need to understand better.
You are a former member of Congress. What do you think about the dysfunction we're seeing in Congress right now?
Well, it was dysfunctional when I left, and that's really, frankly, the biggest reason why I left. I served 10 years there, and I get more done as a Commissioner of Agriculture in 6 months than I did in 5 years in Washington. It's unfortunate. It's not what... I think it's frustrating for everybody who watches it. I was glad to get out of there with my soul and my sanity still intact. But, this country has major challenges, and we need to have members of Congress who are willing and able to rip the Band-Aid and make the tough decisions. And the days of kicking the can down the road are behind us. It's time to make some tough decisions. Elections have consequences, and it's just important that we have folks in there who are willing to do the right things for the future of our children and grandchildren.
I mentioned this on the air yesterday. The impasse we seem to be at here, you would think concern about elections would get some movement in Congress. Historically, we have seen that. But you have people now in Congress entrenched who say, hey, we were elected not to budge on these issues, and we're not going to budge, and that's led to more of an impasse. Kind of an ironic impasse we're at.
Well, and honestly, I don't know that gridlock is going to magically disappear after the next election, regardless of who wins the White House. I think that you'll still see a divided legislative branch, or at least a legislative branch where there's not a commanding lead in terms of numbers. For example, even if you saw a change in leadership in the Senate, I don't know that you'd see 60 votes in any one party. So you're going to continue to see this gridlock, and some of it is reflective of the nation's own conflicted views of where we should go. But some of it is rooted in other things, the 24-hour news cycle and cable, and there's just sort of this escalation of outrageous rhetoric going on out there. States, I think, will become more and more important that they get their own house in order as Washington becomes less and less relevant in people's lives.
So finally, a little pitch for Florida here. A lot of people around the country don't think of it as an agricultural state, but as you pointed out, it's huge agricultural production. What do people within the state itself think about that?
Well, as I said, we've got a lot of visitors, a lot of snowbirds, a lot of retirees, people who come here. They don't really get an opportunity to see our ag production in the interior of the state. But Fresh from Florida is a brand that we promote around the world. My family's been in the citrus and cattle business for 5 generations. We believe that we're a vital and proud part of the American agricultural system, and American agriculture is something that we need to nurture. We need to encourage more young people to go into the business. We need to tear down the things that break up family farms, like the estate tax. We need to make sure that farmers and ranchers have the ability to have access to the crop production tools that they need to continue to be on the leading edge of production, and make sure that there are trade agreements that are fair to the American farmer.
Very good. Good to meet you, sir.
Good to be with you. Thank you so much.
That's Adam Putnam. He is the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture. All right, with that, we will wrap things up here at the Ag Retailers Association meeting going on in Boca Raton, but we have more coming up tomorrow. We'll focus more on these sustainability issues. Hope you'll join us on AgriTalk.